little while since we brought on to the show our producer extraordinaire, Nathan Matoush, who works the Matoush Magic day in and day out. And I thought, heck, we're overdue. Let's bring a little Matoush Magic on the camera. Nathan Matoush, how the heck are you, brother?
Jimmy, I'm doing good. You're right. It's been a long time. I feel like a new man with this haircut.
You just got a haircut yesterday. Trimmed everything here too. So looking good. Looking good.
Yes, sir.
How's it feel? I mean, I got my hair cut a week ago yesterday. It felt really good, like a weight was lifted off of my head. How does it feel for you?
Yeah, and I saw that you did that yesterday. I was like, man.
You mean last week? Yeah.
Or last week. And I'm like, man, Jimmy Sengenberger, he's starting to feel really good. I think I need to do that for myself. So that's what I did yesterday. And, hey, I mean, as things start opening up, might as well get a nice
Let me ask you, did you feel comfortable? Because I know I talked about how comfortable I felt at my hair salon with Sport Clips, where I was talking with the person who was working there, and she was cutting my hair and saying how comfortable she felt. I felt comfortable with the cleanliness, with the processes they had in place, with the mask policy, all of that. Did you feel comfortable too?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, I mean, you mentioned Sports Clips. That's our go-to place. That's where I went as well yesterday at Sports Clips. But, yeah, they kind of felt like a normal haircut. I went in there. There wasn't any chairs, so I wasn't really able to sit down. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I just kept on my mask for the most part until they cleaned up those sideburns.
To be clear, there aren't chairs up front. When you're back getting your hair cut, there are chairs.
Oh, yeah, chairs as far as, getting the haircut,
yeah,
but, up front, sitting
They don't
down.
want you waiting. Nobody's there. They want to make sure that people aren't getting in there early thinking, hey, I can just sit down and relax, basically make it a little more inconvenient when you're up front. But I think they have a good process, and the private market's figuring these things out and doing well, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I think so as well. And, we're starting to see things open back up in a safety concern and in safety fashion. And personally, I think Jared Polis is doing a good job of finding that balance between the health of the people and opening up the economy.
In some of these regards, I would say yes. There are a lot of other areas where I would say that our governor here in Colorado, Jared Polis, is very much missing the mark and taking on too much authority, but that's discussion for another time. Let's talk about sports for a moment. You're a sports guy. NASCAR will be coming back without audiences. MLB is looking at a plan to move forward come July with a reopening of their season. So what are you expecting? What are you hearing? Fill us in and give us some thoughts from your perspective on how this plan is coming about for them.
Well, yeah. As you mentioned, NASCAR, it opened up this past Sunday, actually. They're having a lot of races here in the next couple weeks, and that will definitely gain some viewership there as they'll be having the races on Fox. As far as Major League Baseball is concerned, the owners gave a proposal out, and it's going to go to the Players Association later on, but the owners have a proposal on the table basically to have baseball start around the 4th of July, so about a month ahead of time will be kind of the spring training, but I guess you could call it, summer training. But, yeah, baseball season would start July 4th. They'd play an 82-game season, and then it would end around the normal time. And there's also a couple states out there, a couple state governors who have given the green light to have professional sports come out, including Florida, Arizona, Texas, New York. So as far as Major League Baseball is concerned, I think this might be a go, my friend. Baseball will be back.
Now, how does that make you feel as a guy who's been deprived of sports now for months?
It makes me feel absolutely extraordinary. I mean, bringing back sports, it's going to feel like watching sports for the first time. It's going to bring me back to, like childhood, turning on a baseball game or a football game for the very first time. It's going to be awesome, man. I'm a big baseball guy too. Definitely a Colorado Rockies fan here, so
Well, what about the no audience thing? I mean, that's going to be strange.
Yeah, that's going to be really strange. I mean,
And they're not going to make as much money. I mean, these facilities depend upon the income that comes from people actually paying for tickets and buying concessions and so forth. It's why you remember when we had Rick French on, who, of course, is the owner of the Daytona Tortugas minor league baseball team. He wasn't sure that they'd be able to pull it off because of the revenue cuts that they would have to face at these facilities.
oh, yeah, definitely. And he mentioned that. And also, the players are going to have to take a significant pay cut. They had Bryce Harper, who plays on the Philadelphia Phillies, come out and say something about it. Blake Snell, the pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays, he says that he's not going to play for a salary cut. But you look at it this way, they're only playing a half a season, so maybe just get half the pay, But I find it really depressing opening up without fans. I mean, especially with me, I do like a lot of sports announcing stuff. Especially with Colorado School of Mines and with Metro in the past and, high school athletics. And the crowd is such a big part
Oh, it is.
of
You
sports.
watch a baseball game and it's silent in there, but for when, the baseball bat hits the ball, and that's basically the only sound that you get to hear other than the play-by-play from the people on the TV. You don't have, I mean, unless they, put holograms somehow in the crowds or, they could wrap a green screen around the whole stadium.
Hey, why not?
And then they could go ahead, Coors Field with a green screen covering where the audience would be, and then they plug in the audience and then just have the crowds cheering and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that's viable, but hey, you never know if they're looking for creative ways to do it.
Yeah, Jimmy, I think what we should do is we should have a live watch party here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. When the baseball season opens up, we would add some more pizzazz.
I mean, if we can go back and forth between talking about politics and economics and
That's
so
right.
forth, and then show some of the game. I mean, because the game would be really long anyway. That's a heck of a long live stream. And I enjoy a baseball game, but not as much on TV.
When was the last time you watched a baseball game full, Jimmy Sengenberger? Nine full innings.
5 years ago when I went to see the Rockies.
Hey,
4 years ago, something like that. Last
There
time
you go. That's-
last time I went to a Rockies game, I think. So, all right, so we've got the sports world starting to come back a little bit, and a lot of states are moving towards reopening. Let's talk for a moment about Peter Navarro, more on the political side of things. This is Cut 7. Peter Navarro, of course, is the Defense Production Act coordinator. He's also the big guy behind the China trade war and other steps and initiatives that Navarro has brought about over the last few years in the Trump administration. And he responded to criticism that President Trump has been getting over the idea that he would criticize governors who aren't reopening, even though he's leaving it up to governors to reopen. Let's take a listen.
I gotta ask you this question about the president. On one hand, he says he wants to leave these decisions up to governors. But it does seem as if he doesn't like the decision of a governor, particularly if they're in the Midwest, he expresses his view. How does that help the governor be able to make their own decisions?
Look, I report directly to the president. I'm one of the top five advisors on policy. I let the president speak for himself. That's all I can say. I do think that what we're seeing here across this country in terms of different responses, that it is very useful to leverage local control. But on the other hand, I'm a Californian, and when I see the mayor of Los Angeles want to lock down that city through the end of July, I just got to have to scratch my head. I think that California, that's the only way I see California ever becoming a red state, because my folks back in Orange County are not going to put up with that kind of nonsense. And it is nonsense.
And he's right. It absolutely is nonsense. But look, I think governors can make the decision. If the president is saying, hey, I'm not going to step in, that doesn't mean that he can't also criticize them and say, hey, you're keeping your economies shut down, which means the federal government has to spend, at least this is the logic, the federal government has to spend more money to help keep people's lives afloat at home because they're forced to stay at home. And it is the case that if a state or a municipality county like Los Angeles County decides to shut things down, and then the federal government has to use taxpayer dollars to help keep businesses afloat or give money to people who are staying at home by the force of that local government, then the president has absolutely every right, Nathan Matoush, to criticize those states and those municipalities and those counties and say you should be reopening, let alone just in general that he has every right to speak his mind and say, I think you're doing this too slowly and we need to get things open back up.
Yeah, well said, Jimmy. And the fact that there's some people and governors in California that want to keep the economy shut down until the end of July, early August, that just baffles me. I mean, come on. If there's other states that are open to the idea of having pro sports come back, you can't keep an entire state shut down. I think give credit to Peter Navarro, standing up to the media on Meet the Press. We've seen this a lot. The media pressed Larry Kudlow a couple weeks ago with a video that we watched, and he stood up a little bit for for the president and the administration, and I agree definitely. President Trump has the right to call out those that aren't opening up the economy.
Well, I think he should, because the economic impact is not just confined to Los Angeles County or to Michigan. It spills over to the rest of the country. And we talked about this before, we haven't seen, in my view, nearly enough evidence to demonstrate that other than flattening the curve and keeping hospital beds open, that the stay-at-home orders have had any meaningful effect. Maybe it's helped a bit to flatten the curve, but at this point, we haven't even touched capacity. People are still waiting to be given the okay to go get a biopsy done so they can check for cancer. Other elective procedures being forestalled into who knows when you're going to be able to go get a surgery that may be necessary but considered elective because it's not COVID related. I mean, these are all things that can come from a shutdown in a municipality or a state, hurting people's lives, but then also having economic spillover effects and societal effects that are not just confined to the local area. And it's so interesting when the left, Nathan, they like to say we should have a national quarantine policy at the federal level. But if President Trump hints at having a national reopening policy at the federal level, or even just complains about it, they give him criticism. You can't have it both ways. My view is let him speak his mind however he wants, but let the states and local governments make their determination, at least for the time being still. That's fine. Pretty consistent there.
Oh, yeah, well said. And I mean, he definitely has the right to call him out like that with not reopening the economy. We've said this before. You got to find a balance between not downplaying the virus, because that's not what we're doing. We're not downplaying the virus. It's still out there. It could still affect lives. It could still affect people.
Still killing people, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the curve is flattened. I think it's time to put politics aside. It's time to get things open. And, like President Trump has said, this is not just having an impact on people, the virus, but also, mental health. People are depressed. They're without their job. What is it? 1 in 5 people are without their job right now. And, some people will not get their jobs back. So there comes a point where we can't just be shut down and, listen to the federal government and be shut in our house and, live in fear forever. I mean, It's got to stop.
Well, and here's the thing. Now, the balance has sort of shifted. In order to achieve balance, you need to be looking more at reopening the economy now, because we've already gotten past the flatten the curve step, and now we need to be reopening things and helping other aspects of society than just narrowly focused on saying everything needs to be shut down. I mean, there are colleges and universities in California that are saying we're not going to have school in the fall. We're not letting people come to campus in the fall, and I just think that's outrageous. And Dr. Fauci's even suggested that maybe we shouldn't have schools reopen, elementary, middle, high schools reopen come the fall. And I'm looking at it saying, look, you cannot put society and life on hold because you are simply trying to address one aspect of a societal ill. And as you pointed out, Nathan, we're not seeing society saying, and you and I aren't saying this, nobody's saying, well, I'm sure there's somebody, but nobody's saying, hey, we need to just not worry about the virus at all. Don't take any precautions. It's fake. It's not real in entirety. Nobody's saying that. We're saying let's get things reopened in the economy, reopen healthcare services beyond just COVID-19 stuff. Let's get schools back open. Let's get life back open, because you can't just keep everything on hold, but do it in a smart way.
Yeah, do it in a smart way. And I mean, the schools, if we're going to open up the economy, halfway, you might as well open the schools too. We can't just be like half in here, just kind of, open up parts of the economy and just never open up the public schools, for the rest of the year.
But parents, if they're working and they're getting back to work, they need to be able to take care of their kids. So what do you do during the school day if there is no school and you're trying to work? So I guess during the work day and there's no school, and normally your kids would be in school in the fall.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. And, there's been even taught, there's ways to work around this. There's ways that we could come up with to open the public schools and the economy while still promoting, safety for the American people. But, you well said, Jimmy. And I think something that I heard earlier is that the schools might have like a suggestion, an idea that maybe students will come to school, only 3 out of the 5 days a week in a social distancing fashion. Maybe it starts off with that and we slowly get kids back. But this whole idea of just shutting down everything for the rest of the year just baffles me. We had people like in Chicago who were literally enforcing the law. Like if people broke the stay-at-home order, some would be, possibly thrown in jail.
And then the mayor of Chicago goes and gets a haircut, while haircuts are illegal to go get because of her order, because, well, she's got to look good on TV. She's representing the city of Chicago. Another example of an elite who says, hey, rules for thee, but not for me. And that's ridiculous. I got one more question, and then I want to shift to hydroxychloroquine for a moment.
Okay.
You're a young guy. You're even younger than me. And I'm curious, your friends that you talk to about the lockdowns and reopening, who are not necessarily that politically engaged, what are they saying? What's their view? What's their thinking?
Well, I think they're kind of in the same boat as you and I. They don't want to see everything shut down. Like I got a roommate, and him and I we actually went to church these past few weekends. There is Catholic church opened up. They had a social distancing mass. So I think everyone, despite your political views or despite where you lean on the political spectrum, is eager to get out there. They're eager to get back to church, get back to going out and getting a haircut, maybe some restaurants opening up. And I don't see them really downplaying the virus at all. Just because you want things opened up and you want to get back to semi-normal life, it doesn't mean that you're downplaying the virus. And I see a lot of my friends, we even had a poker night the other night, a Monopoly night. We still social distance. We still, have masks. We still follow the rules. But at the same time, we're eager to get back.
Nathan Matoush, working the Matoush Magic every day as producer extraordinaire, joining me live here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Let's play cut one. Yesterday, President Trump, Nathan, made big news by saying that he's taking a particular drug that has been very controversial, even though he has not been diagnosed with coronavirus.
The frontline workers, many are taking it. I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine. Right now, yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I started taking it. Because I think it's good. I've heard a lot of good stories. And if it's not good, I'll tell you right, I'm not going to get hurt by it. It's been around for 40 years for malaria, for lupus, for other things. I take it. Frontline workers take it. A lot of doctors take it. A lot of doctors take it. I take it. Now, I hope to not be able to take it soon because, I hope they come up with some answer. But I think people should be allowed to. I got a letter from a doctor the other day from Westchester, New York, around the area. He didn't want anything. He just said, sir, I have hundreds of patients, and I give them hydroxychloroquine. I give them the Z-Pak, which is zithromycin, and I give them zinc. And out of the hundreds of patients, many hundreds, over 300 patients, I haven't lost one. He said, please keep pressing that, sir. And if you look at that phony report that was put in, that report on the hydroxy was given to people that were in extraordinarily bad condition. Extraordinarily bad. People that were dying. No, I think for whatever it's worth, I take it. I would have told you that 3-4 days ago, but we never had a chance because you never asked me the question.
The White House.
President Trump talking about hydroxychloroquine, saying he's on it, Nathan. And I look at this issue of hydroxychloroquine in this way. We've talked about it before, the idea of individual choice and consultation with your doctor. Now, first of all, let me say how he phrased that. I take it, just in a nonchalant way. And then when he was asked about it further, he talked about how he went to his doctor and said, can I take it for this? And his doctor said, sure, you can do it, as opposed to his doctor actually recommending it. And so I think he should have worded it better and phrased it a little less nonchalantly, shall we say, than he did. But at the same time, people are criticizing him and saying, oh, well, the science says you shouldn't take it, and it's a big controversy, and it's not clear this and that. Look, first of all, individuals in consultation with their doctors should be able to take any medication off-label that their doctor can substantiate. We've had Dr. Dennis Durrell, who's a hospitalist on this program. Now, he personally thinks that remdesivir, another treatment that's being used for coronavirus, COVID-19 patients, that remdesivir is better. But he said on this very show, both times we've talked to him, that all of his patients, unless their risk profile doesn't fit it, are getting hydroxychloroquine because it has been shown to have some positivity in terms of its effect. And therefore, he's using it. Now, of course, what President Trump is doing is saying this is something where he's using it preventatively, that it's not a particular measure that he's doing because he's got the coronavirus, and that may be adding an additional controversial level to it. But I want to pull up a text message. I was texting with a friend of mine who has a doctorate in nursing and teaches at a nursing school in the Denver area. And she noted this, that the anti-malarial drug, being hydroxychloroquine, does have components that make your system more well-equipped to handle the virus. She's been doing a lot of reading research. She can prescribe. She's got the ability as a doctorate of nursing. She's got that RX prescription ability, by the way, so keep that in mind. She said, this drug directly interferes with the cell membrane and inhibits growth of COVID-19. Therefore, it is effective in the prophylactic capacity of COVID. That is to say that it can reasonably be used, particularly if your risk profile fits it, to help prevent against COVID-19 because of what the science is showing and how it functions as a drug. Now, there are different studies that are suggesting maybe there are some risks here, maybe it's not perfect in this area or that area when it comes to treating. But as she also told me, you could find any one study to support, when she was going through her doctorate process, any one study can support any argument that you write in a paper. You can do that. The question is, what is the overall science showing about how the drug functions? And then how is it working in terms of its efficacy? And there is indeed a lot of evidence that this is working. The bottom line is that if you have a lot of evidence that's working, if you have a lot of substantiation for it, and the science is there, and a doctor wants to make that determination, you shouldn't be saying, no, you shouldn't use it. On the other hand, and same token, the president shouldn't be all, cavalier about it and just say, yeah, I'm taking it, especially when the media's all in a tizzy trying to drum up skepticism about this. But so, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, all medications, all things, prescribed by doctors, there's always going to be, a small risk. There's always going to be maybe a chance of a small side effect.
Or a big side effect, it depends.
Or a big side effect, but we know this, for all prescription and all drugs, no drug is just going to be perfect. And I can both agree. President Trump might need to work on, toning it down just a little bit and maybe rewording things a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think what was demonstrated definitely in that interview, and we've talked about this on the show, you've talked about this a lot, is the doctor-patient relationship. And that's what President Trump demonstrated. He got prescribed hydroxychloroquine from his doctor, and he's listening to his doctor. And once again, we see the media in a tizzy about it, and we're also seeing a lot that the government is getting in the way of the doctor-patient relationship. You know, we've mentioned that the FDA hasn't approved this drug. They won't allow the public to have these.
They
drugs.
haven't approved it for what's called off-label use. That is specifically for
right.
COVID-19. But the drug, I mean, this drug has been around for 60 years. This is not something that's new, that is not familiar to doctors, and they can see why it's working now. That doesn't mean that it's going to work in every circumstance or that everybody should be on it. But that's where this doctor-patient relationship you're bringing up is critical, because a doctor is there to provide good consultation and good advice to their patient. They're not going to say, hey, you should do this. You might die. You're the President of the United States. You might die, but go ahead and take it anyway if you really want to. No.
Yeah,
the
these
doctor
are
clearly had an
doctors-
important conversation.
These are doctors getting in the way. And this is just my opinion personally. I would personally prefer a drug like hydroxychloroquine rather than a vaccine, like all this talk about, like, with what's going on with Bill Gates, of him making, like, this whole vaccine. I personally don't trust a vaccine coming from the government. That's just
Well, I'll say, for me, when it comes to a vaccine, it's going to take time. I don't know that we're going to have one this year. In fact, I'll be surprised if we have a coronavirus this year. I would want to see what is the support for this, how effective is it, how is that particular vaccine working before I decide to allow injection of a virus, in essence, into me. I would want to make that decision.
I think we got to test out
I
drugs
don't
like hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
And and stuff like that.
Right, but in terms of a virus, a vaccine here, we'd be talking about something brand new, whereas hydroxychloroquine has been around for decades and has been effective in other areas and safe in other areas, and then you apply it here. Well, whereas a coronavirus vaccine is going to be very different. Now, I'm not so much into the conspiracy theories about the potential creation of the vaccine and whatnot. That's not what bothers me potentially about this, but nevertheless, we shouldn't rush to a vaccine. But point is, the media is, again, apoplectic about this. They're saying, oh, my gosh, the president could die. Anybody could die from this. Of course. Anything like that is a risk. But if the physician to the president says, hey, you should do this, and something were to happen to him, the reality is that physician would be in trouble. He's not going to just cavalierly say, hey, go do it. There is science to back this up, the use of the drug, and not just to treat patients, but also to say you can use it as a preventative medication. Now, having said that again, nobody should take this conversation we're having, Nathan, and say, oh, well, Trump's using it, and Jimmy says, hey, this works, and a nurse friend of his says it works, and the research is showing that, and so forth, and then just decide, I'm going to go get it on the black market or whatever. Talk to a physician. Don't just be cavalier about it. That's the theme.
This is about the relationship that you have with your doctor, and personally, I trust the relationship with my doctor more than
Dr. Fauci,
more than Bill Gates and vaccine.
I would trust the Dr. Fauci less
I would
than
trust
any.
Dr. Fauci.
Well, no. I'm saying I would trust Dr. Fauci less than I would trust any physician that I'd be talking to. Fauci has his own. I mean, I got to say, Fauci has lost me. On this program, I used to call him the most trusted man in America.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't buy that anymore.
He mentioned that he thinks that schools should be shut down, for the rest of the year. But I mean, he's also, defended himself a little bit, saying, I'm a doctor, I'm not an expert on the economy. But at the same time, you got people in the media, and you got people all over there like, whatever Dr. Anthony Fauci says, we do. We shut down the rest of the year. We shut down everything because, Dr. Fauci says so. And
Exactly.
I agree with you.
Exactly. No, and the thing about Fauci, he's still making recommendations that have massive economic impacts. And he even did say, in answering one question during the Senate hearing last week, he said, well, if you reopen, you might end up hurting the economy because you reopen too soon and more people get the virus, this and that. You'll hurt the economy. It's like, well, which is it? Are you going to be giving advice relative to the economy, or are you not going to give advice relative to the economy? And guess what, Dr. Fauci? You shouldn't be giving advice relative to the economy.
Well, and it just really puts us just kind of in the middle. The American people, who are we going to trust? Are we going to trust
That's the question.
the doctors, or are we going to trust, people who are experts on the economy? Secretary Mnuchin, all these other folks that are experts on the economy. So we're kind of in the middle of this.
Very true. Well, Nathan Matoush, working the Matoush Magic. Thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate the opportunity yet again. I'm really liking what we got on the show so far. I mean, that interview with Mark Cuban, you've had Andrew Wheeler on, you've had Sidney Powell, the attorney for Michael Flynn. It's been great. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Oh, so much more to come. That's for darn sure. Nathan Matoush, everybody, our producer extraordinaire. And by the way, let me just say this. We made this point before. The idea isn't to just say don't listen to Fauci. Fauci's got his viewpoint. He's got his things to express. But we bring in the President of the United States to make the decision and consider all the factors, all the advice he gets, not to just listen to one man. And the media talks up Fauci like he's the one and only guy that we need to listen to. You just watched a clip from Jimmy at the Crossroads. Don't miss more engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel today. You want to catch our live show. And I love your support.
I got Jimmy at the crossroads, making sense out of no sense. Yeah.